If you're looking to get a new car, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive. Sure, you love your old car, but you know it's not normal to give instructions on how to open the window. It should be self-explanatory, but it's not. And notice how when you're in other people's cars, you can feel cushion in the seats? That's pretty nice, right? No, it's just normal. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and put the savings toward a new car. It's time. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
Venture X from Capital One is the travel card for people always asking,
where next?
You earn 10x miles on hotels and rental cars, and 5x miles on flights booked through Capital One Travel, and 2x miles on everything else you buy with Venture X. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Doing that, I was face to face with it. It was holding me by my throat, and it felt like it was sucking something out of me.
I probably should have been more scared than I was when I witnessed the exorcism.
I turned and looked on my right side. When I did, there's a beam on the side of the tree, a large beam. It's looking at me and I'm looking at it.
After I hit the lock button and looked back up, I saw red eyes staring back at me.
That they're going to show multiple gods all over the earth, be able to speak in people's languages, and at that point, it kind of converge into this one entity, which will be revealed as extraterrestrial. You'll realize that aliens are the gods of old, and at that point, it'll wipe religion out of the context of humanity.
No way, it couldn't have been a person, I know that. I know that people can't run through the woods like that.
So this thing comes into view, and I see it. It's 50 yards away from me. It's walking on two legs. It's huge. This is a big, hairy-looking being.
Welcome. I'm your host, and this is uNcomfortable. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a special guest for you tonight. Spencer is with us, and Spencer reached out a short time ago via email with some experiences that he's had throughout, it sounds like, the early part of his life. So if you would, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Spencer. Spencer, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Hey man, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So tell me, what's that was a very short email, but you packed a lot into it. And quite honestly, there was no way that I was not going to respond to that email.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous actually when I sent it, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, listening to your show, I had this idea in my head. It's like, I've had some pretty weird experiences in my life. I mean, I don't know if it would be worthy of being put on a podcast, but I just thought I'll give it a try, Well,
I mean, from the briefness of the email and the quantity of stuff that you had in there, the quality, I should say, I think it's pretty worthy of being on a podcast. So,
well, it's good to know.
Why don't you walk us into it? Let's start at the beginning and take us through what you've had happen.
All right. So it all began really when I was about 7 or 8 years old, living in California, Modesto, California. My mom at the time was single mom. I lost my dad to suicide when I was about 4 years old. And at the time, yeah, it's all right. So we were a little strapped for money at the time. She was looking for a new place for us to live. Me, my brother, and sister. And she had found this house in Modesto. We were living in Manteca at the time. And it was like dirt cheap. She thought, oh, that's perfect, you know? But because she was so desperate, she hadn't thought to look into it more. And when we got there, the house was, for lack of a better word, in shambles. It was not what was advertised. Must have been the reason why it was so cheap. It had a lot of fixing up to do. And we were only there for about a year or two, I want to say. So the first thing I remember about this house was that there was this room with very unique flooring in it. And it was sort of like a rug, but not really. It was sort of like stepping on, like, imagine if the floor was covered in mold, but it wasn't mold. Yeah, it was very weird. The thing about this room was, during the day, it was fine. It, you know, there was nothing special about it. It just had this weird flooring. But every night at, I believe, it was 9:00 every night, you'd walk in there and it would just smell like, I don't know how else to describe it, like death. Like a body was under the house or something. Really? And yeah, it was so strange. And after an hour, that smell would go away. As soon as the clock struck 10, it'd be gone. So
from 9 p.m. till 10 p.m., it smelled like death.
Yeah. It was the strangest thing. And that's the only thing I can describe it as, because, I mean, I don't know what a corpse smells like, but it was sort of like, it couldn't have been like a human corpse smell, because I hear that's absolutely horrid, but it was more akin to like a dead animal.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the weirdest thing. It during the day, it smelled fine. There was no smell at all. I'm
fat. I know I should be fascinated by the smell of death, but I'm fascinated by trying to wrap my head around your description of that floor.
Oh yeah, it was weird.
I can't even imagine. Was it? I mean, could you see the edges of it? Was it a carpet? Was it something that was, or did it go completely wall to wall? Or
I really can't remember. I would like to say that it wasn't covering the entirety of the floor. I think it was just part of it. Like, I think maybe it just wasn't finished. Like somebody had ripped up part of the tiling or something. I don't know.
Okay. So anyway, sorry. It's a visual I got in my head that I'm trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's definitely burned into my head. So that was one weird thing about the house. The next thing, I never heard anything as a kid, but my whole family described hearing voices in the walls periodically, as if somebody had turned on a TV and they were just talking, just in the walls, and they would go outside and look around, nobody there. This was sort of a rural area. Our nearest neighbor was about I don't know, I want to say like 30 yards away. I don't know. But let's just say our neighbors were pretty sparse.
Okay, so you weren't stacked right on top of each other.
No, yeah. So it couldn't have been, unless they were talking really loud, it couldn't have been the neighbors. And yeah, I would ask them about it. I'm like, what do these voices sound like? And they told me they sounded like as if somebody had put on a TV and they were just watching TV, just voices coming through the wall. It was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't ever hear it, because I probably would have been scared to death.
Was it just your siblings that were hearing it, or did your mom hear it as well?
It was my mom and my siblings that were hearing it. And yeah.
So how long did you guys end up living in that house?
I want to say it was about a year. I think we didn't stay any longer than a year and a half, maybe.
And have all the experiences that we're going to be talking tonight, is that all take place in that same place?
No. The majority of them would actually happen in the house that I moved in when I moved into Florida.
Okay, so I'm not trying to jump you around or anything. I was just curious.
No, it's okay. It's all right. I think the creepiest thing that happened in that house in California was the night that my brother was possessed by a demon. I remember it was just a normal night. Nothing really was going on. I remember him sitting in the living room with his head in his hands. Sorry if my voice starts to get shaky. It's been a long time since I...
Take your time.
Since I went into this. Yeah, he was sitting with his head in his hands, and I just remember him mumbling to himself and him making he was sort of whimpering, and at some point he yelled, and it was just nauseating. It was because he was shaking and whimpering, and then all of a sudden he just goes, "Ah!" And he later on, when I asked him what he saw or what he felt, this was years ago. This was years later. When I asked him, but he said that he just heard these voices swirling around him, and just saying these horrible things to him and mocking him, and I think he said at one point something touched him, and then he didn't see anything visual until he screamed. When he screamed like that, he said that he saw this green, ugly thing just fly into his face, and he said that when it did that, it made this sound. It was like that as it flew towards him and into his body.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was. Just thinking about it now.
So, at the point that this happens, what age are you?
I want to say I was I think I was 7 years old.
Okay. Were you aware of any change in his, obviously his sitting there and reacting the way he was is a little off-putting and probably wasn't typical for him. But I mean, was there a change in him as far as personality or how he acted, or?
Yes. So shortly after that, like I said, most of the things that I'm talking about, I didn't personally experience. It was mostly what my family was telling me what was going on. But being so young, I didn't, I wasn't like watching him, I was paying attention to his mannerisms or anything. Right. But I did notice little things here and there. Like one day he would be happy-go-lucky, he'd feel fine, and then all of a sudden he would go into this state where he was just absolutely depressed. He would cut himself all the time. I believe he would disappear a lot and then just come back like nothing happened. And I think that years later,
you're talking like on his own accord, he would leave the house for a while. You're not saying he just came up missing.
No, yeah, he would leave and
okay.
Yeah, and which he was prone to doing as a kid as well. So that might have I wasn't sure if that was the possession causing that or if it was just him doing his thing. But years later, when we asked him, like, were you aware what was going on or anything? He said that it was like he fell asleep. Like when he would get depressed, he said that it felt like he would go to sleep and then wake up like days later. Like he wouldn't remember anything.
Oh, so like he was not in control of what he was doing.
Right. Yeah. I'm not really sure if the demon ever actually left him, because ever since then he had problems.
So you think this has stayed with him?
Yeah. I'm not sure if he ever got delivered from it. I know that we had people. I come from a Christian family. I know that we had people pray over him. We never did any like exorcism or anything. That's more of a Catholic thing, I think. But what we do, I'm not denominational. What we do is like we'll pray over that. It's sort of like an exorcism, but a little bit different, just without the holy water. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know very much about exorcisms other than what I've seen in movies. But,
right. How would he react when those things were taking place?
I don't think I was around very much when this was happening. This was just things that were told to me. I do want to mention for a while there, I was sent away to my grandparents' house, and I stayed with them for I think a year, because at that time he was volatile. Like my mom didn't want me to be around him.
Okay.
During that time, so a lot of this stuff is just things that were told to me, that were happening to him at least. But I'm not sure if he ever got free of it. He's currently in prison. He had been sent to prison previously, and he was out for a couple of years, but he was sent back very recently because of, I don't want to get into what he did, but
sure.
He's always had problems, even before this thing happened. I think it was sort of it came to a head,
So he always seemed to be a bit troubled.
Right. Yeah. And, even before my dad died, he was just always that way. But yeah, so yeah, he had all kinds of mental problems as well. I remember him talking to me about his schizoaffective disorder and how he would see things like bodies hanging from the ceiling and just rooms covered in blood, and then he'd walk back into that room and it was like nothing happened, and just all kinds of creepy things.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, he had problems.
Do you know, was he at any point during his life, do you know if he was seeking treatment for that, or was it going left unchecked?
Any treatment that he got, I think he was forced into. I don't think he ever really wanted help.
I got you. So it wasn't something he was actively seeking. It was everybody around him.
It was just like, okay, all right, bud, yeah, you got to get some treatment. Yeah. But so yeah, that's. I was relieved when he went back to prison because.
Oh, that's a sad thing to have to say. I'm sorry.
It is. It really is. It just felt like the person I knew wasn't really the person I knew.
Yeah.
My brother was a lie.
How was your personal relationship with him? I mean, was he ever disconnected from you, or did you guys seem to have a pretty close relationship?
We were pretty close. There were times where, typical big brother stuff. He would, lock me in closets and, and freaking, we would be in a store together, and I would hate it when somebody walked too far away from me when I was younger. And he would intentionally walk super far ahead of me and act like he didn't know me. I don't know you. Who is this kid? Yeah. They would just hated it.
Tormenting you.
Yeah, he was a douche a lot of the time, but I still love him because he's my brother, and I'm always gonna love him, and I've forgiven him for a lot of things that he's done. So our relationship was always pretty decent, I would say. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack. Sorry you had to go through that.
It's all right. I think that I'm better for it. I think that the things in my life that I've experienced have made me who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So
did you ever, later on in life, have you ever had deeper conversations with your mom or your sister about the things that were going on that you weren't privy to at such an early age, but what kind of things kind of set you on your ear as far as what they told you?
The funny thing is I never really thought to ask. It was just sort of something that, we all acknowledged, but we didn't ever really talk about it very much. No, I don't remember any really getting very deep into it. I think we would talk about it here and there. It's like, hey, you remember that time? And, you remember that room that smelled like death? All that kind of stuff. But no, we didn't really get very deep into it.
So where do we go from here?
Well, there is one thing that happened to my sister in that house that I'm not sure was paranormal, but it was inexplicable. We had this metal hook that was grafted onto the ceiling of the outside porch. And one day she was out there, I think she was talking on the phone or something, and out of nowhere, this hook just falls off the ceiling and swings. It was like on a string or a cord or something. Swings and sticks right into her eye.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Nobody knows. Thankfully, the damage wasn't permanent. She had to wear an eye patch for a while, of course. But, yeah, it hurt her pretty bad. And so we ended up, like, cutting that hook off and throwing it somewhere. I don't know. But it's just out of nowhere. Like, seemingly nothing caused this thing to fall. It just unhinged from the ceiling and swung right into her eye.
Wow. Man,
I remember being...
That's so strange because, I mean, had she been sitting a foot further away or in a different position, obviously it would have missed her, and unless it was... unless it had some intent behind it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It seems almost intentional. It seems like that house was just out to get us. You know what I mean? Like, whatever was in that house did not want us there. Very malevolent. And, there was also this...
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, there was also this thing that happened to me. Also, can't really say it's paranormal, but it is really creepy. If you would like me to get into that. Okay, so one night I was trying to go to sleep. Don't remember what time it was, but I kept feeling this strange fluttering sensation in my ear, and my first thought was, oh, it's probably a moth trying to just, get into my ear or something. So I kept like swatting. I kept swatting away. Kept swatting the air over my ear, thinking, oh, it's probably a fly or, some bug. And I just kept feeling this fluttering feeling. What is that? And it got me really upset, and I got out of bed and like, oh my God, like it won't stop. Like it kept getting worse. And I start crying and I start screaming. I'm like, there's something in my ear. There's something in my ear, And everyone in the house woke up and they're like, what is it? What's going on? Like, I don't know. There's just something. It feels like something's in my head. And my sister's boyfriend was living there with us at the time. And he's like, okay, I think I might know what it is. Just bear with me. And then he bends me over his knee and he takes some water. He pours some water in the cap, and then he pours it into my ear. And after a couple pours, out came a spider.
Oh my God.
A freaking spider was in my ear, just crawling around. It was lodged in there somehow. I don't know how. We found out that it was actually a black widow. A black widow was in my ear.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. And
I was cut my ear off.
And you want to know the creepiest part about it?
That's not it?
No. To this day, I still can feel that fluttering from time to time. Ooh. Not even joking. It's always there to remind me.
Maybe you got a bunch of little baby black widows that are crawling around inside your cranium.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be something?
Oh, that's awful. I mean, there used to be a show on TV. I don't know if it is anymore or not. I couldn't watch it. It was like, I think it was called The Monsters in Me, and it was about different parasites and things that were like living in the human body that we just have no idea about. And it's like, I don't need to know about this. I can't do it. That's a big nope for me.
Definitely.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that was something, man. I'm knowing that it was a black widow is what scares me, because if that thing had decided to bite the inside of my ear, I would have been gone.
Yeah. And nobody would have ever known. I mean, who would think to, if God forbid you would have passed away? I mean, if there would have been an autopsy, what do you think the chances are that they would have looked in a ear cavity to see? Wow.
Yeah,
that's some nightmare fuel right there.
It really is.
I'm not so sure. I'm glad you told me about that.
Well, you call it uncomfortable for a reason.
I absolutely do. Man, now I don't even like having these earbuds in my ears right now.
You'll be asleep at tonight and oh my God, what is that fluttering?
Spencer. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, so there was a little bit more in your email that I haven't heard you cover yet. So let's get to that.
All right. What do you want to hear?
It's your floor, man. You go.
All right. So I don't really remember anything else happening in that house except this one last thing that absolutely is not paranormal, but was a really fun time that my mother has always been my hero for. I'm not sure if you want me to go into that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, my brother was chilling in his room also at night, and he looks over, and there is a snake coming through the corner of the bottom of his bedroom wall.
Get the hell out of that house, dude.
And he starts freaking out. Oh my God, there's a snake in my room, and it's just slinking across the wall, minding its own business, but we're all freaking out. Oh my God, somebody do something. And what does my mom do? She doesn't pick it up. She doesn't, get any conventional means of getting rid of it. No, what she does is decide, I'm going to use a freaking electric meat slicer. And she takes one of those electric saws that use to cut meat, big turkeys and stuff, plugs it into the wall and just starts sawing away at this thing's head. She chops the snake's head off with an electric meat cutter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go mom.
Yeah, it was brutal. And I just remember watching her do that. I'm like, oh my God. My mom is the freaking coolest.
Jesus. Get out of the house, dude.
Oh yeah. It wasn't long after that we got the hell out of there. But that was the very last thing that I remember ever happening in that house.
And then what, you guys packed up and you headed where was it Florida? Is that what you
Florida,
said?
Yep. Brooksville, Florida.
All right, so you're leaving the creepy ass house behind. Hopefully you're moving away from all the weirdness.
Yep. Or so we thought.
All right.
So we move into this new house. It's pretty nice. It's much better than the last one. It's a trailer, so it's it's not great, but better. I was 9 at this time, about to turn 10. I remember my birthday happened shortly after we moved there. And the very first thing I remember being told about that house was it was shortly after we moved in and we had gotten our beds in there and everything, gotten a little bit of furniture in there. We were all sleeping one night, and this is something that happened to my sister. she told us that she was sleeping one night and she woke up feeling this presence in the room with her. And she looks at the foot of her bed, and there is crouching this black creature with glowing red eyes. And she said that she just started screaming at the top of her lungs. She got out of bed, rushed to where the light switch was supposed to be, but was inexplicably not there. She said that she could not feel the light switch, as if this thing had made it so the light switch just wasn't there, or made her unable to perceive that it was there.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there struggling, screaming in the dark, trying to find the light switch. And she said she finally found it, flipped the light on, and this thing was gone. Mind you, she also, while this was all happening, trying to find the switch, she also said that she couldn't feel her doorknob. Like, her doorknob just wasn't there, and she was crying and slamming on the door, and nobody could hear her. It was like she was in this
vacuum.
Yeah, vacuum, exactly. And this thing was just there. It wasn't doing anything. It was just, I think it just wanted to scare her.
Was she ever able to give you like a description of what this thing looked like, or was it just a black mass with glowing eyes?
Well, the only reference I have is she must have described it, because I can imagine this gargoyle looking thing with horns, and it was just completely black, glowing red eyes. I think she said that it was smiling too. I could be wrong about that. I don't know how long she said that she was struggling in the dark to find the light switch in the doorknob, but I think that eventually she found it, and she ran out of the room and to just get away from it, obviously. And she said that not one of us heard her screaming. She tried to, she was screaming to get us to wake up, to come get her, to come save her, open the door or something.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody heard her. But then it was like nothing happened. Like, everything was fine, everything was normal. She wasn't sure if it was a nightmare or what, but she said that it felt so real. And I think that was probably the creepiest thing that happened in that house that I know of.
Wow, that's strange. Especially, if she had been screaming and trying to get somebody's attention from outside the room, nobody hearing it.
Yeah. Yeah, my poor sister, she's been through a lot.
More on the end of unusual stuff, or?
I would say, yeah. I think the majority of things she's been through was very unusual. There was this other thing I remember describing on the other end of the spectrum. This was, she said that, and this was years and years after she had moved out and everything. She was living with her boyfriend at the time, and she had gotten very sick. I don't remember what it was. I don't know if it was an infection or what, but whatever it was causing a fever so great that it caused her brain to pretty much start shutting down.
Yeah.
And she said while she was in the hospital, she looked over, and there was this figure standing there, ushering her, and she shook her head. She's like, no, I'm not ready to go yet. And next thing she knows, she wakes up in a bed, this big, beautiful bed in this big, beautiful house. It was like a mansion. And she said that she felt like she had always been there. Like nothing, there was no transition. It was like she was always there. You know, she didn't remember ever being on Earth or anything like that. It was just, the only thing I could describe it as was heaven. She was in heaven. And she said that she had this little pet tiger. It was like a white tiger. And she called its name and hopped up on the bed with her, and she started to pet it. And she said that she heard this voice said, you know, you can't stay here. Unfortunately, you have to go back. You still have work to do. And then she said that she woke right back up in the hospital. And that was it. And so I guess she had died or had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Woke up in what, we believe to be heaven. And that was a really, really cool story. That's what makes me look forward to, eternity.
Yeah. You guys think you possibly have something that is would be in lines with a generational attachment?
Oh, like a generational curse?
Yeah. Or attachment, or I mean, you lost your dad very early in life. Did you know much about his dealings, about what kind of person he was? I mean, do you know at some point were your mom and your dad were they dabbling in anything they probably shouldn't have, or?
Yeah. So actually, pretty recently, up until recently, I never really asked questions about my dad. I didn't really care because I didn't know him very well. I was only 4 years old when he died, and I asked my mom. I was like, "Hey, Callie, my wife, she brought up that I never really asked questions about my dad, and I guess I'm curious now. I want to know like what he was like."
Yeah.
And she said that he was a military man. Before I was born, they moved around a lot. She said that he was a pretty great guy. He had his problems, like we all do. They had been going to a Baptist church where he pastored for a while, and he discovered the Pentecostal denomination, and he thought, "Oh wow, this is really cool. I love the energy. I love the atmosphere." And so he went back to the Baptist church with all his friends, and he just he wanted to change it up a little bit. He wanted more energy in the church. He wanted more all that, and everyone that he talked to just shut him down. Like, "Oh no, that's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. That's stupid." And everyone that he talked to shut him down, and it just sort of it put him into a really sad state. He got depressed. He started to fall away from his faith. I'm not sure if he met with this man that I'm about to talk about, or if it was just somebody who knew him or knew of him. But I remember my mom saying something like, there was this guy who was I think he was a warlock or something of that sort. And he had put a hex on my dad or something. I'm not really sure what it was. I'm sorry if none of this is making sense. I'm just sort of, my brain is very, I'm very scatterbrained, so I don't remember a lot of the things that I'm told.
It's all right. Just do your best, man.
All right.
You're doing fine.
So yeah, I guess there's this warlock or this sorcerer guy, and he had done something to my dad and made his depression even worse. And he just spiraled, I guess. And then one day the last thing I remember, and I think this was the day he died, the last thing I remember about him was that I was sitting on his lap and he told me, "Hey, I love you." And I looked up at him and I said, "I love you too, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy."
Support for Uncomfortable is brought to you by Manscaped, the best precision-engineered tools for your men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped recently launched the ultimate men's hygiene bundle, the Performance Package. You can join over 5 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code uncomfortable22, all uppercase, at manscaped.com. Manscaped has provided me with their Performance Package 4.0 so I might give you, the listener, my honest opinion about their products. What they didn't realize is I've been using their products since the release of the Lawnmower 2.0 a few years ago. I absolutely love this company's products. The new Lawnmower 4.0, complete with 2 different length guards and replaceable ceramic blades. Its new ergonomic design is waterproof, rechargeable, and now houses an onboard LED light for those hard-to-see areas. The Lawnmower 4.0 shows off their new skin-safe technology and greatly reduces the possibility of nicks and scrapes in those squatchy areas. The 600 milliamp battery allows for up to 90 minutes of use between charges. The grip even has a battery charge indicator and locking feature so it won't turn on in your travel bags. All the packages even include disposable shaving mats. Guys, they've literally thought of everything. Once you've knocked down that uncomfortable overgrowth, it's time to freshen things up down there with a couple of spritzes of Manscaped's Crop Reviver with aloe and witch hazel extracts to protect and soothe. Then finally, a couple of dabs of Crop Preserver deodorant to help keep you dry, reduce chafing, and make you smell like a well-groomed biped. I use these products daily, my friends, and believe me when I say, your boys will thank you. The kit also comes with the rechargeable Weed Whacker, this waterproof, replaceable dual-blade rotary trimmer. Complete with skin-safe technology and stainless steel tips, the Weed Whacker makes short work of annoying nose and ear hair. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts with their Performance Package, the Manscaped Premium Stretch Anti-Chafing Boxers, and the Shed, a perfectly sized travel bag to house all of your Manscaped products. Whether things got a little too hairy during your last expedition, or you just want to look and feel your best for that next ET visitation or full-figured apparition, get 20% off and free shipping with the code uncomfortable22 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code uncomfortable22, all uppercase, unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you.
That was the very, very last time I saw him.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna get into how how he died or anything like that because it's depressing. But I guess that's what really sent him into that state, is that experience, him getting shut down, him losing his faith. This guy that he had an interaction with, I suppose, and
your mom indicated that he was a warlock?
Something like that, something of that sort. He had some sort of, he was some sort of sorcerer, something like that. I don't know if she said it was a warlock or what, but somebody who had the ability to cast curses and hexes and that kind of stuff.
Wow. And the people that were denying your dad his desire to switch over to the Pentecostal way of preaching, they were, I assume those were members of his current congregation that didn't want a part of it?
Yeah, I believe so. It was like his friends and his colleagues, I guess you would say. yeah, they just didn't want anything to do with it.
The more you keep talking, the more I can't help but keep going back to the idea of a generational oppression or curse.
Yeah,
something that's followed the bloodline.
It, now that I think about it, it is very possible because
I don't want to interrupt you, but I got to ask this or I'll forget. Has your mom experienced any personal things like what your brother and your sister and you've witnessed?
She did, but most of the things that have happened to her were before all of this.
Okay.
When she was younger. I think even before she had met my dad. She said that at one time she was messing around with a Ouija board. And after that, she said that she had a spirit of fear attached to her. And she was just terrified of everything. She couldn't go out. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't do anything. She was just scared of everything. And it took her years to get rid of this thing. And she said that at one point she also thinks she saw an angel. She said that she was just walking along the sidewalk, and on the steps of this home, she saw this figure with like a bright, shining face, and it looked like a typical middle-aged man. And she said that she could not bring herself to look at its face. She just couldn't do it. And then it disappeared. So those were a couple things that I remember her telling me that she had experienced. I think that the Ouija board thing probably has a lot to do with what has gone on in my family's lives. That and what my father had experienced with that man, whoever he was.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. And I think that we very likely did have a generational curse or something that was following us, specifically my brother. But I think that if we did, it's not around anymore, because I definitely believe, and I've been taught, that once you give your life to Christ, all generational curses are broken. That doesn't mean you can't still be attacked, but any attachment, anything has to go.
Right.
So, I think if there was, it's not there anymore, because ever since I gave my life to Christ, I have not experienced anything paranormal. That was when I was 18. But
now you had indicated something in your email about having something thrown at you.
Oh yes, yeah. So yeah, that was here in Florida. So this is a very brief story, but it is notable. I want to say I was either 14 or 15 when this happened. This was a while later. A couple of other things had happened that I'll go back to, but I was just walking through the kitchen. We had this box that we always had sitting on the ottoman in our kitchen, and just walking through, normal day, whatever. This box freaking just slides off the ottoman straight at me. And I'm like, I stand there and it didn't really scare me or anything, because at this point I was just so used to all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was just, sort of desensitized. I just looked at this box. I'm like, okay. So I pick it up and put it back and walk right on into my room and just carry it on with my day. It was very weird, though.
I mean, did it slide off like in an aggressive fashion, or was it something that you could have looked at and just been like, well, it was sitting on the edge and it just it happened to slip off as I was walking by?
No, I don't think it could have slid off the edge, because it was pushed far back into the ottoman. So, like, imagine like a shelf, and there's there's two pieces jutting out, on each side. It was like pushed a little bit into there. So I don't think like the wind from me walking by could have caused that, because I hadn't even turned the corner yet either. So I hadn't walked past it. I was still like facing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't say that it was particularly aggressive. It was just sort of, I'm going to knock this box off at you and see what happens,
Take notice.
Yeah. And nothing else had happened to me that day. I guess whatever had caused it had determined that I wasn't really worth the trouble. So, yeah. And, a little before that, well, not a little before that, a couple years before that, I remember still being young. I was probably 11, 12. We had been experiencing these things in this house for a little while now, and my mom wanted to get a group of people to come and pray over the house and, anoint it with oil and all that. And so they did. They came, and everyone was. I was just there witnessing it. I wasn't really a part of it. I didn't really truly understand what was going on at the time, I don't think. But during that whole session, whatever was in the house did not want all those people there. It was not pleased that they were trying to rid the house of it.
What kind of things were happening?
So I remember just feeling the whole time I felt this very oppressive energy all throughout the house. It was mostly taking place in the living room. We had this picture hanging on the wall. We hadn't cleaned it in a while, so it was pretty dusty. One of the women who were anointing the house and praying over it had noticed on the picture and in the dust was written hell. And it looked like somebody had just, taken their finger and wrote hell across the dust.
Really?
But yeah. And the weirdest thing though was that whatever it was had to have extremely skinny fingers, because the writing was very thin. It looked like somebody either had taken their pinky and done it, or something had a very small index finger.
Yeah.
That was pretty creepy. And then I remember the next thing I remember happening was we were all standing in the doorway of my mom's room, and one of the women had started to struggle breathing, and she was like that, and she was sort of like up on her her toes, her tippy toes, as if something was like lifting her up slightly, and something, I guess, was choking her, and everyone was, frantically praying, and eventually it stopped. But I remember watching that, being really freaking creeped out.
Yeah, I would say so. I would have been too.
Yeah. Yeah, things in that house never really completely stopped happening. We tried our best to pray over it and cast anything out that was in there, but I think maybe things just kept coming in. I think maybe some of us were inadvertently inviting these spirits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it would settle down for a while, and then it would just start right back up again. And it wasn't even the same stuff. That's the thing. Typically when you have a haunting, it's usually, the same type of thing happening. Whether it be cabinets opening and closing or doors or whatever. But these things it was so subtle that it was sort of easy to miss, but it was also not subtle enough to be dismissible. So I had mentioned that my stepdad at the time, my mom had gotten married to him shortly after we moved there. He would always say that all of his belongings would keep disappearing. I think a lot of people have experienced this. It's very, I wouldn't say it's common, but as far as weird things go, I think that at least once or twice in our lives, we've all experienced something disappearing and just never coming back, or something disappearing and appearing again in some random place.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Quite recently, about 3 weeks ago, I, my son, and two of our friends, we went and did an investigation of a cottage that had some experiences going on in it. And one thing in particular was they reported the sound of footsteps coming down the stairway from the upstairs to the downstairs landing. So I wanted to make sure that I specifically mic'd the stairway during the recording process. I wanted to make sure that if there were ever any sounds coming down that stairway, that we'd have a microphone there to capture it. And during the setup for the evening, I'd gotten everything set up, and I was going to set up the mic stand with a boom arm on it so that the microphone would not be laying on the stairway. It would just be hovering right over the wood of the stairway. And so I had my stand, and I had the microphone, and I had my cable, but the connection that goes at the end of the stand that actually holds the microphone in place, I went to grab that out of my gear, and I had it in my hand, and I set it down on a coffee table, and I got kind of discombobulated a little bit. I went and I did something else, and then I came back to finish doing what I was doing, and that clip that holds the microphone was gone. And so I started retracing my steps, and I went back, and I was like, nope, it wasn't there, and I went back to my equipment box and thought, well, maybe I just imagined pulling it out of there, and it wasn't in there. I spent a good 20-25 minutes really trying to find this thing again. And the last thing I wanted to do was actually lay the microphone on the floor of the stairway, because I wanted it to be suspended. I didn't want there to be, like, if the heat would kick on or the air conditioner would kick on and there would be some kind of motion on the floor. I didn't want to get something that wasn't tangible. And after about 20 minutes, I'd asked a couple of the other guys if they picked it up or if they saw it or they knocked it over. And, the last guy came back down from the upstairs, and I said, "Hey, are you messing with me, And he's like, "No, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to find this part." And he's like, "No, dude, I didn't take it." He said, "I wouldn't do that to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I'm sure you wouldn't, but I gotta ask because it's nowhere to be found." And I went back over, and he's like, "Well, where did you have it last?" And I said, "I walked over here, and I've got this big Pelican case that a lot of my equipment goes in." And I put my hand in there. I said, I grabbed it out of here, and as I moved a couple of the cables out of the way, it was sitting right there.
Wow.
It had gone back to being in exactly the same place it was prior to me pulling it out of the Pelican case and putting it on the end table. And that kind of took me back. I was like, okay. First of all, one of the biggest things they wanted to do is get across the point that they heard things coming down that stairway a lot. And it would be accompanied with a cold gust of air or a cold breeze, that would send chills up them. So that was something that, from the first time we had a conversation about it, I very much wanted to make sure that we mic'd that stairway. So, and then, 25 minutes worth of trying to get this done. And then it just shows back up, and it's like, was something trying to discourage me from following through with that, or was that some way of indicating that you need to do this, making it more stand out, which we recorded an awful lot of stuff that night, and I'm trying to create a show around the evidence that we caught. It's proving to be much more difficult than what I anticipated in the beginning. Just trying to tie all of the evidence that we created or collected with the content we were trying to, it was basically designed to be a podcast during a live investigation.
Okay,
and,
that's cool.
The thing is, I wound up with 4 hours or 4.5 hours of audio from 5 different sources. So going through all of that and paying attention to whether or not we caught anything that wasn't just us talking has proven to become a lot of work. But I can say this, it will come. It should be a fairly interesting show. We did catch a number of things that I was surprised by. And one of them actually was the sounds of 3 creaking hardwood steps coming off of that mic that I had set up on the stairway. So it was worth the effort. It's just going to take a while to get it to the light of day for everybody. So,
Wow, well, excited to hear that for sure.
Well, Spencer, I can't thank you enough for reaching out and going over some of these things. I can't help but feel that you guys have been on the receiving end of something that is generational. I mean, it seems that your brother has had continued issues throughout his life, and you said a number of things have happened with your sister throughout her years. It's unfortunate, and I assume now you and your wife, I assume you live in a different home than the one down in Florida that you moved to.
Yeah, we were living in that house for a little bit when we first got married, but now we've gotten away from all that.
And your life is unencumbered by any of the weirdness.
For the most part, yeah. Yeah, we haven't had anything really happen to us ever since. There was this one last thing that I had experienced a very brief time. We were living in a different area.
You and your wife?
Because my family.
Oh, okay.
My brother and sister weren't involved. It was just me, my stepdad, and my mother. We had unfortunately gotten evicted from that house. And we moved. This was around the time I was in middle school, so I was about 14. We moved to this little, I don't even know what a community, I guess, called Daymac. And, you know, it was, I think it was sort of specifically geared towards people who didn't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed that way. So when we moved to this house, you know, it was nothing special. Pretty small. My room was it was very uncomfortable being in there the time that we lived there, because my bed was right next to this window where somehow a dew kept getting on my bed. I can't remember if it was because the window wouldn't close or what, but my bed would always be damp at night. And it was the most uncomfortable thing because there was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah.
Thinking back now, I could have just moved my bed away from the window. I didn't think of doing that. I guess I was just too lazy. I was just, whatever, I'll just deal with it. But, yeah, so one night I was, a lot of the stuff that's happening always happens at night when we're trying to go to sleep. I just realized. I was laying in bed, trying to go to sleep. And I had rolled over and my closet was open. And I just glanced in there. And I saw, for a very brief moment, this glowing pair of yellow eyes just sitting in there. And it was like right at the edge of the top of the door of the closet door.
So the eyes were just below the frame.
Yeah. And it wasn't like a super tall door, but whatever it was, it looked like it was like standing, and it had to be pretty tall because the door frame was I would say like 3 feet taller than I was.
Yeah. And
I was about 5'4" at the time, I think. So I'm understandably creeped out at this point, so I turn over in my bed. I'm just trying to forget about it and shut my eyes and go to sleep. And then I felt this heaviness, as if somebody had laid down on top of me. And I was like, oh God, like, what is this? And I did not want to move. I was so scared. Like, eventually I fell asleep. And the next day I just tried to shake it off and not think about it. But
had that weight ever left you? I mean, did you fall asleep with it feeling like it was on top of you?
Yeah, I think I did. I think so.
Was it just like a heaviness, or did it feel like something was physically laying on you?
Like a heaviness, yeah. Like, it's really hard to describe. It's like, if air had been more dense than it actually was, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, and I just felt like this something was laying on top of me. And then I think it was a couple days later I was talking to somebody about it, and they had been privy to the knowledge that an old lady had died in that very room that I was staying in. And after hearing that, I was like, wow, that makes sense. That is really creepy.
That is creepy, but that wouldn't, an old lady would not explain eyes at the top of the frame of a door.
No, definitely not. Which is one of the reasons why I am of the opinion that ghosts aren't dead people. I don't believe that. I think they would like us to believe that they are as a deception tactic, but I don't think that. Like, I don't want to say everything is demons, you know what I mean? But because not everything is. But I think that as far as ghosts that people deal with, the majority of the time they're demons.
You think
known
so?
as known as familiars, and I believe that every person has a familiar. That a spirit is assigned to us at birth, and they follow us around, study us, get to know every aspect of our lives.
And you feel that a familiar is placed on us at birth by negative means, or?
Yes, yeah, like Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him. The enemy. Yeah. I believe that they're demons, and the whole point of them residing, that I believe that they take our place on Earth when we die, whether we go to heaven or hell or whatever. I believe that the purpose that they serve is to convince people that their dead, deceased loved ones, and the whole point is that to get people to all agree that when we die we stay here on Earth. You know, what better way to convince people there is no heaven or hell if we stay here, or purgatory or wherever.
That's an interesting take on it. I don't know that I've ever.
Yeah, I was actually. I didn't always believe that. I was in a car ride with a family friend, and I was telling him about how, I love watching, ghost hunting shows. I love watching people going in haunted houses and ghost hunting. I love it. It's great. And he was like, well, I believe that these ghosts are not actually what we think they are. I don't think they're dead people. I think that they're demons known as familiars, blah, 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 everything I had told you just now. And, I didn't want to hear it. I was like, that's bullcrap. I don't think that's true. But, as I went through life and after I got saved and everything, I really started to believe that because it started to make a whole lot of sense, But yeah, that's my take on it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to put some thought behind that. That's something I've not considered.
Yeah. And as for aliens and all that, I'm not really sure what to believe about aliens because that's more so on the scientific side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the paranormal is just science that we don't understand.
Exactly.
But
the only reason it's
yeah.
weird is because we haven't figured it out yet.
Right, exactly. If I if I had the intelligence for it, I definitely would want to be a part of a group that studies the science of spirituality. You know, I don't know if something like that exists, but if it did, I would definitely want to be part of that, because I'm super into like frequencies and dimensions and all that kind of stuff.
Frequencies have been coming up an awful lot in a lot of conversations that I've been having recently, and I think there is something to it. I think frequency plays a big part in how these things are accessing our perception, putting themselves in a position that we recognize their existence. I think it's all based on frequency and vibration. So
definitely, yeah. And I would say that I'm sorry, are you still talking?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I would say that everything is connected.
Absolutely.
Like, for me, because I'm a Christian, everything comes back to the Bible. Everything that I hear or experience, it all solidifies my belief that you know, Jesus really is the way, the truth, and the life. You know, like, it all just because I'll hear something, I'll think about it, and I try to think about how that is in relation to all of creation, how it all plays into, you know, the grand scheme, the grand calculus of the universe or multiverse or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And just the more I think about it, the more it all makes sense. The more I just realize there really are two sides. You know, like you know what Joel was talking about, how, you know, the government, they're all the Illuminati, they're devil worshippers. They, you know, they make sacrifices, they do rituals. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they really do too, and there's got to be a reason for that. You know, and
I think there's enough evidence out there that is pretty easily found that there are a number of high-powered, influential people in the upper 1%, the upper echelon of people who control the government and big business and you know, control the majority of the money, that they do dabble in some bizarre stuff, and it sure makes you wonder.
Oh, definitely. And I love what he said about you know, if you try to get out of it, they'll ruin your life. You know, either that or kill you.
Yeah.
And my wife was telling me how she had read somewhere, I think it was, that Michael Jackson, before he died, he had called his sister and said, "They're after me." And she says, Who's after you, Michael? What are you talking about? And it's like, I can't really say. I can't talk about it. I just know that they're after me.
I've heard that recording. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, I think it was like a couple days later that he was found dead. It's like, if that's not convincing, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
You know, they're
strange stuff.
Definitely. But as for things that have happened in my life, that's about it to date.
Well, hopefully things remain calm for you. I hope that for you and your wife, and hopefully your mother as well, the rest of your family. Good luck to your brother. I hope that he finds some peace at some point. And I want to thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to reach out and come to us with your story. And it's interesting, thought-provoking stuff.
Well, and I want to thank you for, deeming me worthy of being on your show. I was really excited to be able to be on. I honestly didn't think I was gonna be having this conversation right now. I just thought, I'm just gonna shoot my shot and see what happens. And I was really excited to see your email back. And yeah, and I love what you're doing. I love the topics. I especially loved the Dinner with a Witch episode. That was
that seems to be a very popular show.
Yeah, that was something. Like a lot of the things she said, because I'm a Christian, I'm like, oh, man, like I just draw like what do you call it? Similarities, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we're on a kind of a
no, that's fine.
Time constraint. Okay. But I was thinking about the thing she said about the hex that she put on that person, how she made them puke lead for 3 weeks, I think it was.
Yeah.
God, terrifying. But interestingly enough, I've always been taught that those of us who have given our lives to Christ completely and have been saved, we are actually immune to magic. We cannot be harmed by.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that.
Think so?
Yeah. Personal experience. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Someone I knew very well, they were susceptible to it. And I think you can find throughout not too much investigation. You can find people who are very, very devout in their religion, and are still affected by these things. And I don't know why that is. There's got to be, there's a number of possession stories that come out of very near the Vatican. In fact, very, very, very devout believers, and even to the point where they attend services and go into churches, but yet still have to grapple with these things. But I hope you're right. I hope you are right. But
yeah,
my fear is that that's not always the case. So.
Maybe. I would say that those cases, and I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but I wonder if it has something to do with their, what exactly are they devout to? Is it their religion, or is it their relationship with God? Because you can be religious, but that doesn't mean you have a close relationship with God. You know what I mean?
And that's my big problem with conventional organized religions. It seems to be more about your faith and your devotion to your church and to your pastor or your priest, and it becomes more about how devoted are you to the amount of money that you can contribute to their causes on a monthly basis. And to me, a relationship with the Creator, whoever you feel that is, I think it's all the same. I think all the religions throughout the world, for the most part, are based on the same entity. Let's call it. So what one person calls God, or the other one calls Yahweh, or the other one calls, whatever religion you're in. I think it's all the same. There's too many similarities through so many different religions, and the the one thing with mankind is that we are terrible. We're terrible things on this world. Once we understand that we can push a narrative and change people's beliefs to fit and benefit our narrative, we do that. And, just so, I mean, how many different versions of the Catholic religion are out there? I mean,
yeah.
And, like you got the Pentecostals and you got this and you've got that. And it's not about us and the people that are preaching to us. It's not about that. It's about your relationship, your personal relationship with your creator. And,
right.
So that's where I am at. And, if you want, I mean, I went to a Christian church, a mega church. And on my second, I believe it was our second visit there, I was approached by somebody from the church saying, "Oh, I heard you want to join the church." And I said, "Well, I never said that." But, so he started to give me his spiel, and he wanted to set up an appointment for us to come in, and he was going to need the last 3 months or the last 3 years of my financial returns, so that they could determine how much that I was going to tithe to the ministry.
Oh my goodness!
And when the pastor walked out in front of the crowd, I was struck immediately by the fact that he was wearing a $2,500 to $3,000 silk suit. There was literally a Starbucks type coffee house in the front of this church.
Wow.
They had television cameras. They had television cameras in the service.
Mm-hmm.
And when you walked out, the DVD of the service you just sat through was available for you to buy on your way out the door.
Wow. Quick work.
And the other thing that struck me about that community Christian church was there was not one image of Christ or a crucifix or anything that would point to conventional iconic imagery of what we associate with religion. And it was very bizarre. And you're going to ask me, you're going to tell me that I have to provide my financials so you can determine how much money I'm going to contribute to the church? No, thank you. I'll continue to do it in my own way.
That's really messed up. That I have a big problem with churches like that for sure. Like a lot of the stuff that you described is in my church, but we don't expect money from people. We don't need your money. God doesn't need your money. And we're taught that when we give, when we tithe or whatever, that's not for God's benefit. It's not for, it's simply to further the growth of the kingdom, to fund missions, to fund getting food out there to people, to building projects such as we're trying to build a pregnancy center for young women who are thinking about getting an abortion. We want to give people options. We want to give people a safe place that they can go to where, hey, if you want to get an abortion, that's your choice. There's nothing we can do about that, but we have options. We want to help you, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we also have TV cameras. I know a lot of people have problems with that. I've always just thought about it as we want to get the gospel as far out into the world as we possibly can, for all to tune in whatever. It's not like a publicity thing. It's not like look at me, look at our church, you know. And I think that's the problem with most churches. That's what it is. That's like they're high on their own success.
Yeah.
You know, it's a business. It's
Well, I'm gonna say this, and I mean absolutely no offense towards your church, but do yourself a favor. Don't ever get a wild hair and decide to start digging into how much the leaders of that church make a year. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say about that.
I got you.
Spencer,
but
listen, we got to wrap things up here. I appreciate you taking the time and bringing these stories to us. A lot for people to consider. You know, not everybody has a story about a demon that came through the ceiling and grabbed them and snatched them up and took them away, or, you know, Bigfoot crossed in front of their car and slammed their fist into the hood while they were driving by. I think all these things are worth talking about, and I think they are all valid and will answer questions for at least somebody who is listening to the show. So
yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate, like I appreciate you letting me come on, and it was a blast talking to you.
It was good conversation for sure.
Yeah. Just thank you for your show. Thank you for this opportunity. I love your show. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and don't quit.
No plans on it.
And it was awesome.
All right, Spencer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
I want to hear your story. I want to hear your experience. So email me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, then leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. Share the show with your friends. Share the show on social media. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. All at Uncomfortable Podcast. And until next week, my friends, stay uncomfortable.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
With the Kroger Plus card, it's easy to get lower than low prices for the win. Earn fuel points on every purchase and save up to $1 a gallon at the pump. The Kroger Plus card. All you do is win. Big, big savings. Sign up now at Kroger.com and start saving. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Fuel restrictions apply.
Save big on your favorites with the Buy 5 or More, Save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.